Welcome to the latest edition of The Blend. My name is Steve Benz. This is our very first attempt at video. And look, just off to right over there, that is singer crooner, one of my favorite people of all time, Limahl. Let us welcome Limahl to the very first video blend. Limahl, how are you, my friend?
Big thumbs up. Hey, Steve. I'm great, thank you. Isn't technology good when it works?
Sure, we had some issues to start with, audio issues. It's like, can I hear you? Can I not hear you? And yet, I look at both of us, we both have damn good hair. That's all that really matters.
That's the best thing my mother gave to me is the hair.
Right? Isn't it? Isn't the truth? And even as bad as our hair was in the 80s, all that is back. The mullets are back, and I've got my thumbs up for that.
Yeah, well, the mullets can come back, but I don't want to wear one. Somebody asked me that because it's like if young people have a mullet, that's kind of cool, acknowledging the past because they're young. But for me, it's like I'm stuck in the past, you know? I've moved on.
Let's hope
So
so. And of course, I'm going to give my, I have a cup of tea just for you. That is the worst accent ever. I've been practicing it all day. So, so how are you
Well,
all set
if
for the
you were
holiday?
saying if you were asking for a tea in the UK, to like really familiar friends,
Mhm.
you'd say, "Do you fancy a cuppa?"
Oh,
So it's CUPPA. You don't even say the T.
I got to write that down.
Okay. Yeah, cuppa. Do you fancy a cuppa? Or if you were ordering in a cafe or something, you might say, "Could I have a tea, please?" And then it just comes in whatever it comes in. You don't say the word cup.
See,
Or there's
I was supposed to be in
go on.
England this year, this summer, for some shows. I have some contacts in Scotland and all, and I go,
Right.
Scotland, and they always say, stop that. You do not sound Scottish. Just be the American that you are. So I laugh a little.
It's a tough accent, Scottish. It's a tough. I can't do it. I can't do that. In fact, I think I'll take my translation book the next time.
That's funny. That's funny. All right, so you were just on a couple months ago with the single Still in Love, still at the top of the charts. People keep requesting that every week. So bravo to you, my friend. Bravo.
Oh wow, that's great.
It's a great single. It's a great single. And now here you are. You have a Christmas single out doing really well. So tell me about that and recording that. I understand it's a little different than you might have recorded in the past.
Yeah, I mean the song was written 8 years ago, and uh, in the lockdown, well, it came out just very quietly. You know, it
Mhm.
got a couple of good reviews. No big push. I wasn't on social media. I mean, the landscape has changed so much in 8 years. But in the lockdown, I was thinking about the lyrics to the original song, which was called London for Christmas, because I'd always had this thing about, I've got to write a song about London. I love my city. You
Mhm.
know, the songs about New York and Paris, and not that many about London. And so that was kind of on my songwriter
Mhm.
bucket list, really, to do a song about London. Also on the bucket list was a song about Christmas. And I'd never really pursued either. But what we did was we combined the two ideas. So it gave us a new angle
Mhm.
into Christmas, which is pretty tough to find, as
It
you can imagine.
is.
You know, everyone's done chestnuts and snowmen and Santa. So in the pandemic, in the first lockdown in March and April, I was just thinking about the lyrics and how relevant they are this year, how they talk
Very much.
about all this stuff that we can't do at the moment, you know, the theatre, the cocktail bar, the shopping at Selfridges, the London Eye, which is a big wheel, if people don't know, opposite the beautiful Houses of Parliament on the River Thames, and also the boat trip on the Thames, all this stuff you see. And so I called up my two co-writers, John Nichol and Ian Kernow, and said, "Come on, guys, why don't we revisit the song? It seems relevant." And in doing the music, in revisiting the production, we got the idea for the very small tweak of the lyric. So
Okay.
London for Christmas became One Wish for Christmas. Just that small thing. It was like the final piece of the jigsaw puzzle, and it felt right.
Did it take a long time redoing the song?
It did, because um, you know how technology moves so fast, and we'd done the original 8 years ago, and
Right.
the producer Ian Kerno, it couldn't find the files because he'd moved on to a different platform, and
Right.
you know he's probably got like 20 hard drives later where you store stuff. And then he couldn't find the files in June, he couldn't find them in July, he couldn't find them in August. When by the time we got to September, I thought, oh, it's not going to happen this year. That's a shame. Then he suddenly found them, and then he had to not upgrade, but back retrograde.
Oh my goodness.
You know, he had to go back before he could go forward. It was weird. So there was all this technical stuff. And then when the music was done, and I did some of the vocals remotely from my home,
Hmm.
the guitars, some of the instruments were done remotely and sent to the producer. It was amazing using technology in that way. Then we got to the video, and then there was a lockdown. You weren't really supposed to go anywhere.
Right.
You know, we managed to get permission to get 14 people in the theater to shoot the video, but keep socially distant. It's all very tricky. So I felt when I watched the first rough cut of the video, I mean, I did enjoy it, but it was just a huge sense of relief. I just felt like I'd climbed this huge mountain, you
Mhm.
know.
So where did you record in your house? Like, do you have a studio in your house?
I have a little setup. Yeah, I wouldn't call it a studio. I mean, back in my day, you know,
Our day.
I love,
In our
oh,
day.
I love that expression. Oh, back in my day, you know, you had to have a mixing desk and all the rest of it. And now everything can be done from the computer, which is incredible. And even a laptop. I think some people even do stuff on their mobiles. So yeah, I have a good microphone. That's important, and a good compressor limiter, and a few little toys. You know, I use what everybody else uses, one of the big platforms, the music platforms.
Are you technical? Are you really
I am,
technically savvy?
I am, I'm no, I'm quite technical. I over the years, I have, you know, just as a musician, you get new software or new instruments. I mean, I remember before the software, it was all synthesizers, or it was hard equipment, and you would just be pressing buttons and turning knobs, and
But
you
I
know,
miss
and
that.
just
I still have all the flashing buttons here. So
yeah, I love that. I used to have a studio because I worked as a producer for a while in the 90s. Um, and I worked really hard for 7 years, actually, like 12 hours a day, producing, mixing, writing. And when you walked in and you switched on the power, it did look like the cockpit of an aeroplane or something. It was fantastic,
yeah, but we
very
love that. And it would have
exciting.
to warm up as well. I miss those days.
It's
Those
like
were
toys
fun
for the
days.
boys, toys for the boys.
But we do like the toys. I'm still not comfortable listening to people just using GarageBand and things of that sort. Although I guess it's just that's not our generation. We're back a couple of years, and I don't feel too bad about that. But it allows me to move my studio. My studio had to be moved because of the pandemic, so it is what it is at this point.
In the UK, there's actually a studio you can hire that has all old-fashioned equipment. You record on analog tape. It's all valves and stuff. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but that would be, you know, I don't know if you've noticed, Steve, but if I'm listening to, say, a playlist on one of the streaming sites, and it goes from something from the 70s and then it jumps to like the 90s,
Hmm.
I can hear the difference.
Sure,
Uh, and
sure.
I love the fact that my two biggest hits, Too Shy and Never Ending Story, were both recorded on analog tape, you know, in the old-fashioned way, because there is a warmth, you know, that
There is.
valves and analog tape gave to recordings. I hear it a lot on the Chic stuff, the early Chic stuff that I love, the Nile Rodgers stuff,
Oh, true.
and others, of course. But we are where we are. I don't think we'll go back. You know, you have to be so careful recording now, because where you had limited tracks, which kind of made you work very compactly. I don't know if that's a word, in a compact way. You know, you knew you had, but now you have infinite, and you can just throw the kitchen sink in there, and then suddenly you go, oh, I can't hear anything anymore. There's too much going on.
And you could correct everything that's bad. Let's face it, you can
Yeah,
with all these tracks. If you could do 48 or 122 tracks, you can
yeah.
add in something that you really couldn't do. But it kind of eliminates the essence of being a band, or at least I think so. There's just like if you were to go watch a live band, they will sound very different than on the CD. And I'm sure with your huge hits, if you listen to the vinyl or the analog versions, and now it might not sound right to you.
I'll shock you now. You know, you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, my first single this year, "Still in Love."
Mhm.
When it was done, the producer, a German guy, Miro Marcus, actually sent me a WhatsApp, and he said, "Do you want me to tune the vocals? They sound slightly out of tune."
Wow.
And I went, "No, no, it's fine." But he had been working with a Japanese act or something where they just were fine, you know, the way they do with the modern stuff now, where they were just throwing everything through the,
Mm.
what's it called? What's that software where they put the vocal through and it sounds like a
Auto tune?
robot?
The auto tune?
Yeah, that type of thing, you know. So they were tuning everything to the nth degree, and his ears had been influenced by that. So when he heard my vocal, when he was looking at the finished mix, he thought my vocal was out of tune. And I just thought it all sounded fine, quite organic, you know.
Right?
Um, but so you have to be really careful with all that stuff for
If
sure.
only I could be auto tuned right now. Right?
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for, auto tune. Oh God, who invented auto
Oh,
tune?
and they should be, they should be taken out and,
Yeah.
just pointed at. It's like, well, look
Let's
what
find the
you've done.
real singers out there.
That's true. There is a lot of truth to that. If you think about into the 90s, late 90s, into the 2000s, there was a lot of auto tune. You see some of those act. And I know I go to a lot of concerts, or did back then, and something would just sound off to me. I would just hear it right away that something was off. But it just
I
makes me
blame
old.
I blame Cher. Do you remember that massive hit at the end of the 90s, I think it
Believe.
was
The
called
song was
Believe?
Believe. Right.
It was Believe.
Right.
That's where it all started. And that song was so huge globally,
Yes.
you know.
And
And
I was
it
the
and
one
it
on air saying, I don't believe she's actually singing. I believe it's voice. So that's just
But
true.
you know, bless Cher, we all love her,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that wasn't a bad record as it goes,
No.
as a pop dance record. But yeah, you
That's
know, that started it all.
So I was kind of thinking back. I don't do a lot of research before I interview people like you and everyone else. It's just like, I know who you are. I should be able to just roll with a conversation. So I was going through some old notes of mine, and before the pandemic, or just before, I was going through some of the press passes that I had. And Adam Ant was one of the shows that I saw. 2018 must have been. And I read a little quirk that you were in one of his videos, and I had to write that down. Go, wait a second. I need to ask about Stand and Deliver, the video, Limahl. So tell me about
Yeah. So pre Kajagoogoo,
that. Mhm.
um, I was working in a nightclub in Bond Street in London called the Embassy Club, and it was kind of a music place. You know, there's a lot of music and media people came down there, and you know, I saw Gary Newman in there. I saw Bananarama. I
Wow.
saw the '70s band Rolls Royce. I saw Elton's manager John Reed.
Wow.
Later on, of course, I met Nick Rose from Duran, who helped us to get signed to EMI Records. But one of the guys that came down there was the assistant of a music video director called Mike Mansfield. And Mike Mansfield had done the Adam and the Ants videos. And he just said to me one night, we're shooting the next Adam and the Ants video this weekend. We need some extras. You get 50 quid, £50.
Pretty
You
good.
get fed, and it's a lot of fun if you want to do it, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, yes, I'm there, you know. So we were picked up by coach in central London, a bus, I think you'd say, at 6 a.m. It was an early start.
Right.
And they drove to this lovely historic house called Hatfield House,
Hmm.
probably 35 miles north of London. And this was a place where Queen Elizabeth in the 1500s, before she became Queen, Princess Elizabeth was confined to Hatfield House by her sister, Queen Mary, who was the Queen. You can see that in that storyline in the movie Elizabeth with Kate Blanchett.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we go off to this historic Hatfield House, and we spend,
Hmm.
12, 14 hours filming. And then when I watched the finished video back, I was mortified. If you blink, you miss me. You know, it's just one of those things. I ended up on the cutting room floor, as they say, not because I did anything wrong. It's just the way they were.
Sure.
The way
Angles,
they,
stuff.
yeah,
I've been
just
cut
to
out of
create.
TV shows and films. So for all your fans out there, go look at Stand and Deliver and see if you can find Limahl. For the
They
Americans,
honestly,
if you can find him and send me a shot, I'll send you a coffee mug. How about that?
it's difficult to see me because they wanted everyone to look weird. That's kind of why I got offered, because sometimes at work I would turn up in like kind of fancy dress. I was only like 19 or 20,
Hmm.
and loved all that stuff. It's creative. And I've got like green alien paint going across my face, and my hair is silver combed back. And yeah, I'm kind of unrecognizable. But if you go to my website, I've actually frozen one of the frames that I'm in, and it was so hard to get that shot.
Oh my goodness.
There was this long dining table, and Adam is stood on the table, walking down,
I remember that. Okay.
performing to everybody, and I was in one of those shots.
There you go. Your first step into stardom,
Yeah,
right?
it was
Now,
exciting.
now you later on you
Adam,
said that.
Adam,
Go ahead.
no, Adam and the Ants were so huge at the time. It was just exciting to be involved in a project like that, for a kid who just arrived in London
What
not
about
long
his
before.
sound? Where uh, he certainly wasn't, Stand and Deliver was really different than what Adam and Ants was really all about. What did you think about that sound and at that time in the 80s and where you
Well,
thought you were going to go?
yeah, I mean, I would blame some of that. Blame's the wrong word. I think, it was obviously a creative decision between the brilliant Svengali manager Malcolm McLaren,
Mhm.
and they were obviously trying to be, they chose an image. They tried to create a sound that went with that image rather than. Uh, it was more image focused than music almost.
Mhm.
It worked for them. That's kind of that was Malcolm McLaren's kind of marketing head, if you like. um I think I've got the name right. It was Malcolm McLaren, their
I think
manager,
so.
am I
I
right?
think so. I think so. That sounds
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. So I personally, I preferred the synthesizer based groups, and their stuff was very kind of tribal, but he was so likable. I mean, watching Adam, what a natural, brilliant performer.
True. Very true. The last time I saw him, he was in a small venue here in Chicago where you could almost touch him. That's how close he was. And what a performance. I was just shocked from remembering him from the 80s and early 90s and then here in the 2000s that he went back to his base, to who he really is and who the ants are. So I was very impressed. Very impressed.
Yeah, he was on a big radio show here, like kind of an intellectual station where it's more talking and documentaries, BBC Radio 4. And he was talking about his time when he was in a mental institute,
Wow.
you know, and he spoke so eloquently. He was angry. I found him incredibly interesting.
I found them to be very, very shy when I had a chance to talk to him. Didn't record anything. It was just an opportunity to speak with him. And I found him just kind of a gentle and shy person. And I thought that was great. I kind of like that.
That is so often the case, isn't it?
Much like you. I didn't get a chance to see you when you were here in the States the last time. There were way too many people for me to get to you. And then, off you went. That's how famous you are around here, Limahl.
Get out of here.
Now, before I ask about Nick Rhodes, because everyone wants to ask about that. So I'm looking in your background and how festive your tree is. I love that. I really like the flashing lights and that sense of blue.
Yeah.
Does it bring
Normally
the
people
color out in your eyes? Is it anything like that?
we like being different. I mean, people normally go for red. So yeah, the blue. I think I stole the idea from a department store, but hey.
It works. It really does work. So as we're talking about when you started and where you are now, what was your influence? You had to want to sing like someone, and I don't think I've ever asked you that.
Boy. Well, I grew up on what do you call Motown? Over here, I'd say it was R&B pop.
We would call it
Uh,
this. It's the same.
yeah, and then I also loved a lot of the records that came out of the Sound of Philadelphia label.
Okay.
So if Motown was 60s and Philadelphia was 70s, they were the records I was buying from the age of like 12, 13.
Okay.
So it was a lot of pop, but they're really well-crafted songs with good singers. I thought they were a brilliant template, really. There was a lot of talent in those records. And then of course I've got Andy Williams, the TV show, coming at me in our house in Wigan. And of all the crooners from that era, he's my favorite.
Really?
Oh, what a voice. The effortlessness that he sang with,
Very true.
you know, I mean, he was great to watch. He was a real pro. And of course there was some, like any TV show, they had a few cheesy moments, but take all that away. Andy was in a group with his brothers, the Williams brothers, and for whatever reason he branched out and he got the TV show and everything. I think he got it because he was incredibly talented as a singer.
And that would
So
follow the Donny Osmond and the Michael Jackson. If you think he's just a precursor to what those two had done with a family and then went on their own.
it's weird because everyone talks about Sinatra, and for me, it's Andy Williams. Sinatra's great, and he had his brilliant arrangers, and he's made his mark, and I like some of his stuff. But for me, that it's the tone of Andy's voice and the ease with which he sang. I mean, and on a lot of those shows, he was actually singing live. It used to astound me. I mean, I just watched something on YouTube the other day. It was wonderful seeing him working with, Judy Garland or Fats Domino or, just um, uh, oh, I'm having one of the Rat Pack guys, the black guy, Sammy Davis
Sammy
Jr.
Davis.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So you throw in all those influences, and then when I got to like 19, no, 17, 18, 19, these are the first albums I had. So we had Barry White, we had brilliant vocal harmony group from New York called the Manhattan Transfer.
Manhattan Transfer.
Then I loved the Carpenters. I had like 3 Carpenters albums.
Yeah,
So
she
you
was a
add in
great singer. She was an outstanding singer. They just don't give
oh
her enough credit. So
yeah, absolutely. Um, so there were so many influences, you know. It's very hard. This is why I've always said to people, my writing, my songwriting, the compositions that came out of my time, my brief time, my one album with Kajagoogoo, will always be unique because everybody brings their influences to the creative table you know, whatever they've grown up listening to. And there's this kind of push and pull. It's a bit like throwing a load of cakes in a mix in a cake, and you just, you know, and then you see what comes out of it. And it's wonderful. It's magical, you know, because you just don't know. You cannot bottle that process. It's different with everybody. And that's why I love what I do.
Now, the cake is a great image because you can have different layers with each one. So each layer, it could taste a little different. You're at one in the middle, you're in the top and the bottom. I think that's a great image to have.
Yeah,
Even as any band that gets together or someone that you work with, you're bringing your own flavor to whatever that track's going to be.
absolutely. Yeah.
So my last question before we let you get back to your holiday, I'm sure you have seen The Masked Singer. Have you not? And the different acts. I don't know if that started in the UK or here, where you're having Leanne Rimes here in America won The Masked Singer. So you're in some type of get up and you just sing and people just kind of vote on who they think the best singer is. So what I was going to ask you is, if you were on a show like that, could they identify your voice and the type of songs that you sing? Could someone go, that's Limahl?
Okay, that's a really interesting question, Steve, because the voice that people know of me is around the top of my register. So in Too Shy chorus, it's shy shy. So it's F sharp. Never Any Story is a semitone higher, so that's G.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the tones that people are very familiar with, understandably.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even the verse of Too Shy is, and well, the verses of Never Any Story, they're all up there, you know. In the new stuff, I'm singing a little bit lower, as well as briefly singing the high stuff, and that's nice to like introduce people to that area of my voice, you know, the low voice. Yeah, Karen Carpenter was actually a low voice. Ella Fitzgerald was a low voice, even though they're female. And I think as long as I, on that TV competition you're referring to, as long as I sang a few F sharps and Gs, they'd go, oh, that's Limahl. But if I didn't, you know, there's a line in my new single where I say, boat trip on the Thames. I think that's the lowest note I've ever sang in a record. You know, the Thames line there, which occurs again in verse 2. But I love it. You know, it's like, it was a challenge to get to that note, but when you get it and it locks, it's like, oh, nice warm tones.
Well, I love it. I think you should be on a show like that. I think you would probably win. It's my
I
personal
don't
opinion.
know if I want to go on a show like that.
I think you should. And if nothing else, maybe you should be one of the judges.
It doesn't appeal at all. Well, a judge, yeah, maybe that, but even, you know, I don't know. Is it, you're referring to it? Is it like really big over there?
It is huge. It is huge.
Is it really? Wow.
It is really, really huge. And I thought it was on, or maybe it's The Voice that's on UK station.
No, The Masked Singer just started here.
Oh, okay.
I saw a couple of trailers, but it doesn't appeal to me. I don't watch those talent shows. I feel, you know, I'm kind of,
I understand.
I avoid. I'm trying to be careful here. You know, I feel a bit sorry for the performers who are kind of thrown in the deep end.
Sure.
And I know how daunting that must be for them, because no one tells you how to handle that stuff. And in a way, sometimes it feels like they're being exploited, because we want to see the tears and the drama and the breakdown, you know. And of course, for an audience, that's great. But I'm like, I'm feeling bad for the artist, you know. I don't know.
I don't know if I continue with my interviews on video, people will see me breaking down, and no one wants to see it. Nobody wants to see that. Limahl, with the new Christmas single, One Wish for Christmas. Limahl, I got to keep having you come back every year. Every time you are on, I have to tell you a little secret. The last time you were on in June was the highest download of my 25-year career on podcasts.
Wow. Wow, that's great.
So I got to have you back more often. I'll just have you.
Well, let's do it in person. Are you in Chicago?
I am.
Chicago, I love Chicago.
And then we'll just kind of work it out somehow, some way. We'll get together.
I've never been to Chicago in the summer. I'd like to come in the summer. I was there once for a gig on New Year's Eve, and then the next day there were like 3 feet of snow, you know. But it was still brilliant, you know. I still really enjoyed it. I'd like to explore it more. It's a really interesting city.
I will be happy to take you around town. That's my
Yeah.
offer to you. So if you come here, or if I go out to London, we'll meet up and we'll get this all done. Maybe in 2021. That's my goal.
It's you can take me to dinner at the Sears. Is it the Sears Tower?
Yeah, it's called the Willis Tower now, but yes.
Oh, excusez-moi.
Yep. That's when corporations get sold off. So it's the Willis Tower. So
Okay.
Big Willie style, we call it here. So Limahl,
It's a
always a
date.
pleasure.
It's a date. It's a
You
date.
take care. I will have you back. Thank you so much for being on the blend.
Oh, you're welcome. Merry Christmas. Stay safe.
You too.